Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Oh, what one's at 6:45? All right, do we have a motion to open up the public hearing for a local law that ceases full value assessments through the calendar year of 2024? Motion made, do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. Do we have anybody wishing to speak on this? Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak on this? Seeing none, are there any town board comments regarding this public hearing? Seeing none, do we have a motion to close the public hearing? Motion made, do we have a second? Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. We're in a position to vote on this tonight. Are there any board comments this time? Seeing no board comments, do we have a motion on the local law that ceases full value assessments in the calendar year 2024? Motion is made by David Kern. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Rico?
Yes.
Councilor Fish?
Yes.
Councilor Sisneto?
Yes.
Councilor Carnes?
Yes.
Supervisor Witt?
Yes. Perfect. Do we have a motion to open up the public hearing to consider a local law amending and adding a provision to the zoning code to create the Lake Creek Planned Unit Development? We have a motion by David. Do we have a second? Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. Do we have anybody signed up to speak?
I do, I have Amelia Robertson.
If you could just, no, you're good. You can just, your name, are you a town resident?
No, I'm not attorney for this.
Yeah, that's what so just let us know that as well, and it's yours.
Good evening, my name is Amelia Robertson, I'm an attorney with Harris Beach. I represent Basic Power LLC. Just wanted to briefly make a statement that we strongly support the creation of the PUD, as it allows for the development of clean energy while making productive use of land that's otherwise unsuitable to many other types of development.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else signed up to speak? Are there any board comments regarding this public hearing? Seeing none, do we have a motion to close the public hearing? Motion made, we have a second. Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed. Are we in a position to vote on this tonight or not?
Unfortunately, we can't. We're still waiting to hear back from county.
County planning regarding this? Okay, so hopefully it'll be on our agenda for January 8th, to hear back from them. Is
We
Mark here? Mark, when is county planning meeting next, do you know?
January 2nd, I think is.
Okay, so hopefully this will be on the agenda for January 8th, for the planning and development to go over our Lake Creek, this is our landfill actually. All right, we're not yet ready to open up the public hearing for number 4. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move to 5. Do we have any residents wishing to speak on an other agenda item?
Nobody signed up.
Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak on any of the agenda items? Seeing none, we are gonna go to town board comments. First Ward.
Okay, I just want to thank the town and everybody for having me for 2 years on the board. This will be my last meeting, and I enjoyed it, and I hope it gets run for 2 more years and it's enough as good as we ran it the last 2 years. And I just want to thank the town of Salina. Thank you.
I appreciate that. It was a pleasure serving on the board with you. Second Ward.
Likewise for myself, it'll be my last meeting, so thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to serve the town of Salina. Wish the best for the town of Salina in the future. And we did a lot of good stuff in the last 2 years. I'm really proud of what we've done, we've accomplished as this board. And also personally, I just want to go on record saying anything I ever voted for or did was what I truly believed was in the best interest of my neighbors in this town. So I can rest on that and be happy with my service. Appreciate it.
Quick point to that, one of the things we voted on tonight is the ceasing of the full value assessments. I know that was a big priority of yours when you first got on the board, and for the last 2 years, you ceased the full value assessments for the town. So I think it's fitting that that was one of the last things that you had voted on. I appreciate serving on the board with you and the service that you provided to the town of Salina. Thank you. Third Ward.
Yeah, I just want to, I'm excited for
what's happening over in the third ward. A lot of parts have finally put in place. I want to thank the other side of town for finally helping. Our side has been kind of overlooked for quite some time. So definitely thank you to you two down there for being a part of that as well. A lot of big things coming over to the third ward area, which has been forgotten for quite some time, so big things coming. Fourth ward.
Yeah, as the last board meeting in 2023, I want to say that I'm pleased with the work that this board has done. We've accomplished a lot for this community. I want to thank Councilor Record and Councilor Cushing. It's been an honor to serve on this board with you, and you've set the bar. So I look forward to the incoming councilors, but we've done great work, and I look forward to continuing to work together in the future.
All right, I hope everybody had a good holiday. New Year's is approaching. Please be safe, obviously. But I hope you all have a good time celebrating my birthday. I'll be celebrating it with you, just probably not physically with you. To the two outgoing counselors, again, I've repeatedly said it over the last few board meetings. Again, it was a pleasure serving with you both. I'm going to see you guys obviously around town, so we'll catch up then. And please stay involved. More importantly, your contributions to the town have been felt. There's a lot of opportunities to continue to be involved, whether it's with potentially the comprehensive plan or the rezoning committee or various other different opportunities. I would personally appreciate if you guys stayed involved and your input. I would receive. Are we good?
1 minute, I'm gonna actually come up there,
All right.
so by the time I get up there, we're probably at once.
It'll take me a minute.
Yeah, we'll do this while you're doing it. Do we have a motion to approve the December 11, 2023 minutes? Motion made. Do we have a second? Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those minutes are approved.
Hello, Jess, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So everyone knows, is our stenographer who's on should be taking a transcription of what's occurring.
Yes, good evening all.
All right, you want to open up the public hearing?
We have a motion to open up the public hearing pursuant to MND Maine Procedure Law Article 2 in relation to certain property located at 235 Greenfield Park. Motion made. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Public hearing is now open.
Jason Record, second.
Matt made the motion, Jason Reed seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
If you're not, you can say nay.
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing is open.
I'll start. My name is Joe Fratelski, and I am the designated public hearing officer in connection with this evening's public hearing being conducted by the town of Salina in accordance with the New York Eminent Domain Procedure Law. We will refer to the town of Salina as the quote-unquote town and the New York Eminent Domain Procedure Law as the EDPL. We are here this evening on the 27th of December 2023 at 6:45 p.m. at Town Hall located at 201 School Road to open and conduct a public hearing concerning the proposed acquisition by the town of certain real property comprising a portion of one tax parcel and approximately 0.50 acres plus or minus, consisting of approximately 21,780 square feet plus or minus, and including approximately 16 parking spaces in connection with the proposed public project, all as outlined during this public hearing. As used in today's hearing, the terms acquisition, real property, and public project have the meanings ascribed to those terms in the EDPL. This public hearing is being conducted pursuant to the EDPL in order to inform the public and to review the public use and benefit to be served by the public project and the impact on the environment and residents of the locality near the public project. In accordance with the EDPL, notice of this public hearing was duly published in the Post Standard on December 7th, 10th, 12th, 14th, and 17th, 2023, as required by the EDPL. Such notice is hereby submitted and entered into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit A. Any person in attendance at this public hearing will be given a reasonable opportunity to present oral or written statements and to submit other documents concerning the public project. If you would like an opportunity to speak at this public hearing or to submit a written statement or other documents, please sign in at the sign-in table if you have not done so already. Names will be called in the order in which they are signed in. As provided in the notice of public hearing, persons unable to attend this public hearing or persons in attendance at this public hearing may submit to the town prior to the end of this public hearing any written statements or other related documents regarding the proposed public project. Such written statements and/or other documents will become part of the public hearing record. Comments received after the close of this public hearing will not be considered. I would like to inform everyone that this public hearing is not a question and answer session. It is instead an opportunity for anyone to present their views to the town so that they may be considered by the town when it makes its determinations and findings as required by the EEPL. A record of this public hearing is being made by stenographer via Zoom. The record will include any written statements submitted at or prior to this public hearing. When available, copies of such record will be available to the public for examination without cost during normal business hours at the town clerk's office and the Onondaga County Clerk's office, and copies of such record will be reproduced upon written request to the town for payment of the cost thereof. Written requests for such record should be addressed to the town of Salina, CO, town supervisor, 201 School Road, Liverpool, New York, 13088. Copies of the map outlining the proposed location of the public project and description of the property subject to condemnation are available at the sign-in table. Copies of the other exhibits referenced in this public hearing are also available at the sign-in table. I will now allow the town supervisor to continue with the public hearing.
Good evening. My name is Nicholas Carroll, and I am the town supervisor for the town of Salina. The real property being considered for acquisition by the town and the subject of this public hearing, consisting of approximately 0.5 acres, which is approximately 21,780 square feet, and includes approximately 16 parking spaces located at 235 Greenfield Parkway in the town of Salina and identifiable by and constituting a portion of tax map number 086-01-153.3 and situated along the southern boundary of the parcel constituting said tax map number and east of the terminus of the cul-de-sac at Greenfield Parkway, collectively referred to during this public hearing as the proposed site. To the town's knowledge, the proposed site is owned by JHK Development LLC. The remaining portion of the parcel constituting said tax map number is not subject to the proposed condemnation, and said remaining portion and the proposed site are collectively occupied by and relate to a private dermatology office.
Mr. Supervisor, can you just speak in the mic a little?
Directly adjacent to this is better.
Yep.
Directly adjacent to the southern boundary of the proposed site lies the site of the former Willenbauer Candle Factory, situated on approximately 11.5 acres of vacant and damaged buildings thereon, and located at 100 Buckley Road in the town of Salina, and identifiable by constituting tax map number 086-01-15.2, and referred to during this public hearing as the development site. The former candle factory at the development site has been vacant and underutilized for over 14 years, with many of the existing buildings that comprise that operation having deteriorated and fallen into significant disrepair. The town has been provided copies of photographs to evidence such state of deterioration and disrepair, and such copies of photographs are hereby submitted and entered into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit B. A local family-owned development and management company through a related entity, Urban Villages PFA LLC, and referred to during this public hearing as, quote, the developer, has endeavored to redevelop and transform long vacant developed site, and its redevelopment activities will include environmental cleanups, site improvements, as well as renovations to existing buildings. Develop the site as a mixed-use development known as the Urban Villages, with market rate apartments, an indoor soccer and lacrosse facility, a brewery, and other businesses. There are a wide range of adverse and negative effects associated with the vacant derelict development site, including but not limited to increased incidents of criminal activity, structural, water, and mechanical damage, public safety concerns, and economic stagnation, all of which, among other things, stymie economic development. The current state of the development site impacts the ability of the town to take advantage of economic development potentially being capitalized on in other areas of town and surrounding communities. As a consequence, it should be no surprise that the cumulative adverse impact of the foregoing includes the significant loss of town sales tax receipts and the reduction in property tax revenues. lower property tax values, loss in employment opportunities, and diminished quality of life for residents. For these reasons, among others, the town has an economic and a public interest in seeing the urban village's mixed-use development come to fruition in whole. At this time, I will ask the Director of Planning and Development for his remarks.
Good evening, my name is Mark LaFever, I'm the Director of Planning and Development with the Town of Salina.
Mark, can you just flip the mic up a little bit?
In this role, I review and review plans and designs that come in front of me for review for the town and give my opinion and direction to the town board. In the town in 2020, I was approached by a developer with respect to a redevelopment and transformation of the development site. At the time, the developer proposed the town to rehab in phases existing buildings to create market value apartments, and none of which were located adjacent to or approximately the northern border of the development site. The town board in 2020 created and imposed the repurposes reuse floating overlay district of the development site to grant the town board site authority in relation with the development site. Hereby, the developer is required to obtain a site plan approval for each future new use. On June 27, 2020, the town board granted site plan approval for the development for the apartments, subject to engineering and legal approval. At the time of such approval, ingress and egress of the site from the north was not a huge concern given the location of development and the market rate apartments. In the summer of 2023, the developer proposed using existing building on the northern portion of the development site for an indoor soccer and lacrosse center. At the time, I began expressing concern to the town board and other town personnel about the additional traffic demands on the indoor soccer and lacrosse center for the bottleneck that could happen at the Buckley Road entrance. Expressing to the developer that should pursue an ingress and egress access point north of the development site connecting to the town-owned Greenfield Parkway. The town board approved the site plan modified to allow for the indoor soccer field and soccer center for November 13, 2023. The developer now indicates that they are seeking approval for the next phase of the development project, which contains eateries, cafes, breweries, such use other compound the bottleneck just discussed to allow these site plan modifications for such use will, in my opinion, absolutely create public health and safety risks due to additional bottleneck of the traffic in the south and southwest ends of the development. Unless ingress and egress access points obtained from the north end of the development site, I do not recommend any further development on the site until that gets attained. And that is separate remarks.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
In light of the foregoing and given the town's economic and public interest to have the urban village's mixed-use development come to its full realization, it is necessary for the town to address and alleviate such bottleneck by acquiring and providing for a public access road from the northern area of the developed site to Greenfield Park. To that end, the proposed acquisition pursuant to the EDPL of the proposed site is required for and is in connection with a certain public project consisting of establishing a public access road extension east of the terminus of the cul-de-sac at Greenfield Parkway through the proposed site, together with ancillary and related improvements to provide for the connection to and improved access from the northern portion of the adjacent development site, all to further the public purposes of, among other things, providing an alternate, safe, and convenient ingress-egress access point for the residents of the town, public safety vehicles, and the general public to safely and conveniently access the urban village's mixed-use development from the north, and thereby alleviate bottlenecking at the development site, and promote the safety, health, and welfare of the people of the town and the general public. Promote the sound growth and development of the town to allow for the further and full development of urban villages mixed-use development, which in turn will advance the general prosperity and economic welfare of the residents of the town by facilitating the return of the adjacent and underutilized development site to productive use by creating employment opportunities, promoting economic revitalization, increasing the negative impacts associated with large vacant buildings within the town, and increasing the town's sales tax revenue and the property tax base within the town. Such proposed acquisition, contemporaneously or in stages pursuant to the EDPL of the proposed site, is what has been referred to at this public hearing as the quote, public project. There are no alternate locations in connection with the public project. In August of this year, the town is notified by New York State that it approved the town's application for a $2 million grant relating to the Urban Village Act's mixed-use development under New York's Restore New York Communities initiative. This provides municipalities with financial assistance for the revitalization of commercial and residential properties and the redevelopment of blighted structures. As such, the public project is necessary in order to implement and advance the public purposes envisioned by New York's Restore New York Communities initiative. In closing, despite the development site proximity to Onondaga Lake, 2 major interstates and Destiny USA, a major shopping center and entertainment center, there has not been any significant success in rejuvenating development site to date for over 14 years. The residents deserve better. The town must act and facilitate improvement of this property for the public good and allow for the necessary full redevelopment of the development site. The developer's efforts to revitalize and fully redevelop the development site are the most impactful way to revitalize this area of the town and would, in turn, provide public benefits to the town and its residents, as already discussed. A map of the location and description of the proposed site and the public project is available for viewing in this room, and copies are available for you to take at the site. Such map and description of the proposed site and the public project is hereby submitted and entered into the record of this public hearing as Exhibit C. The town will conduct an environmental review pursuant to and in accordance with Article 8 of the New York Environmental Conservation Law and associated regulations promulgated thereunder, known hereafter as SECR, with respect to the public project. It is contemplated that within 90 days of the conclusion of this public hearing, the town will make and publish its determination and findings in accordance with the EDPL regarding the proposed acquisition of the proposed site in connection with the public project. This concludes the town statements, and thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you, Supervisor Caro. At this time, I would like to provide an opportunity to anyone who would like to present an oral or written statement and or submit other documents concerning the public project. The public is advised that a reasonable amount of time will be allowed for comments to be made relevant to the public project. I would like to remind everyone that this public hearing is not a question and answer session. I will start by calling the first person on the sign-in sheet requesting to speak and or submit written comments. I'll wait for Town Clerk Talbot to give me that sheet. When you come up to the podium, please state your name and address clearly for the stenographer, and if you are here representing an organization, please identify the same. The first person is Vittorio Pasquarella.
Thank you. Vittorio Pasquarella, 5032 Constitution Lane, New York 13088. Again, Vittorio Pasquarella with Urban Villages PFA. Introduction to myself and my family. We're the party responsible for the redevelopment of the over 100-year-old former Willem-Almer candle factory. Our parent company and affiliates have been in business for over 40 years. We are lifelong residents of the town of Salina, and I personally have resided here for as long as I can remember. We're very familiar with the site, and we are very proud to be leading the charge on this project. Our efforts to rehabilitate this site began in early 2020. At the onset of this development, it was very clear that this project would be a win for the constituents of the town the neighbors to the site, and the town and the county itself. I would like to add, so much so in terms of economic development, the county agreed with this, that they voted unanimously to approve a robust tax abatement package to help assist with the construction of this project. Mr. Supervisor, you mentioned the New York State $2 million grant as well. All of the local and state and county municipal agencies and grant programs out there have been very supportive of this site and realization that could be a huge economic win for the area. I'd like to start out by taking us into initial approvals for the site. At such time, the majority of our attention was focused on such items: select demolition, complete abatement of ACDMs, that's asbestos-containing building materials. So the entire site has been ACDMs removed from the entire site. On top of that, restoration and stabilization of multiple iconic structures. There's the iconic brick building to the southwest of the site. That's the gem of the site. It was at one point in time thought to be in disrepair and would have to have been knocked down. And we're very proud to have that building standing. That's the first building that will be up and running as part of phase 1 of this project. Important to note here, our goals at the onset of this project were as follows: salvage anything with history, inventory any opportunities, and document all and any obvious challenges so that they could be dealt with strategically. Initial concepts were always evolving. We sort of tried to wait until we saw what the site was able to give us. We tried to work with constantly changing economic conditions. 2020, COVID hit, and the markets changed. Neighboring zoning and traffic conditions were, needing to be dealt with. It's a very complex site, complex and unique location. We also wanted to keep in mind the aspirations of the town and its constituents. Early on, efforts were made to discuss initial concepts with neighbors. Some of those were well received, others went unresponded to. Our goals were always to, again, work with our immediate neighbors to allow any obvious development opportunities to flourish. In the early 2023, an opportunity arose to convert an existing warehouse to the northmost area of the site, complex facility. Converting this facility would, however, create additional challenges. There'd be a larger volume of traffic, both pedestrian and vehicular, visiting the site. Although the proposed use was much more cohesive to the surrounding residential and office use, accessibility would need to be addressed to provide public safety. Our consultants recommended, and we agreed, that an alternate connection should be made to reduce traffic at the dangerous southwest intersection of the site, where two streams of traffic, including existing high-speed traffic from the interstate highway, comes together onto Buckley Road. Additional to that, it would be extremely advantageous to create alternate routes for emergency responders to gain access, especially when the likelihood of their presence will be required for the new advent of the youth soccer facility, athletics facility. It goes without saying, as the site is further developed and the patrons of the future commercial and retail uses, and over 200 residential units come online, traffic challenges would only be exacerbated. I would like to end by saying we are in full support of providing an access route for the town through our property to connect to an additional pathway in the Greenfield Parkway. We feel this is a win for all, including all of our neighbors in the Greenfield Parkway, Greenfield Corporate Office Center. Thank you.
Next individual signed up to speak is Steve Calcerinos.
name is Steve Calcerinos Engineering, engineer for the developer of the project, PO Box 2187, Syracuse, New York, 13220. Really, I just wanted to speak a little bit to some of the things that Mr. Pasquarella brought up, as well as design considerations that went into recommendations for an alternate point of access. And as everyone knows, the existing facility prior to the proposed redevelopment was a candle factory, a warehouse site most recently, at least at the very rear of the property. It's taken, I think, different levels of occupancy and use since Roland Balmer actually left the facility. The site right now has unique access configuration. There is a full access driveway that funnels into almost like a courtyard in between the first phase 1, 2, and 3 buildings of the project. And it's very limited access from that location throughout the rest of the site because it really goes right into buildings that form a U-shape around that courtyard. The second point of access is a little bit further south on Buckley Road, and that is a right in, right out only, but also with a straight in from a, I'll say ramp, that was constructed at some point in the past from Buckley Road southbound, that goes into the south end of the site. That really just is a driveway opposite the entrance into the site that you can cut straight across where Park Street and the 81 northbound ramp exits into Buckley Road. And then again, coming out of the site, it's right out only and right in if you're coming from Park Street or the off-ramp. If anybody's been down there at any point in time, traffic coming off of the I-81 off-ramp and even Park Street is moving at a pretty good rate of speed. Regardless of what the speed limit may be there, it always comes down to enforcement, and it's really not a high priority area, I'm sure. It can't be something where you place a police officer there around the clock to enforce what people are doing. A lot of people don't pay attention when they're getting off 81, they're still doing the same speed they were. It's also a blind corner. It's almost a 90-degree corner if you're coming from Park Street or the off-ramp, heading westbound, turning northbound onto Buckley Road. So it is a very difficult intersection and point of access. And historically, when it was being used as a candle factory or a regular user that has employees or staff or people that are frequently in the site on a regular basis, they get used to the configuration, they get used to knowing what they need to look for to provide a little bit higher level of safety coming in and out of the site. Being that the site is being redeveloped into a residential and mixed-use site, you're going to have part of the patrons to the site that are going to be residents and are going to be there on a regular basis. You're also going to have part of the patrons to the site that are going to be intermittent. They're not going to be there every day. They're not going to be there every week or every month. So they could get easily confused coming in and out of the site, or not knowing or recognizing how fast the traffic is coming off of 81 or Buckley Road. So that enhances or increases the potential risk of accidents. It's already a high accident location because of that fact. Putting more people in there that don't travel that location on a regular basis increases that. The north end of the site, again, adjacent to the Greenfield Corporate Park, again, it's an existing cul-de-sac, town road. It comes down to almost the property line. There's a small strip that the right-of-way ends and does not actually attach to or is not adjacent to the north property line of the subject parcel, the development parcel. So there really isn't an ability for the developer to just tie into an existing road right-of-way and connect into an existing road, which would normally be done on any residential project or commercial project that's typically done. For whatever reason in the past, there was a gap left in there, so it really prevents at least the developer from being able to do that, which again, they normally would do. So that's why we're at where we're at as far as this property needing to be acquired for that connection to be made, and why it's so important to provide an alternate point of access, mostly for the infrequent users of the site, patrons of the site, but also as well for the regular residents that are going to be there. They can exit the site north onto Buckley Road at a more level location where Buckley Road is more level and sight lines are a lot better. It also provides enhanced access for emergency vehicles should there ever be any incidents on the site that need emergency services, whether it's fire, police, ambulance, whatever that need may be. So we have looked at several different alternatives based on the site configuration and how it's located between Park Street, I-81 off-ramp, Buckley Road, and then the existing northern property line, 81 to the east. This is really the best alternative to being able to provide enhanced access to the site. I think it's critical for the long-term viability of the site to be able to get that access.
Next individual signed up is Kathleen Bennett.
Hi, good evening. I'm handing out my written submission with exhibits. And my name is Kathleen Bennett. I'm a partner with the law firm of Bond, Shank and King, and I represent JHK Development and House of Dermatology, owners of 235 Greenfield Parkway. Kim and Joe Housel are here with me this evening. So my clients object to the proposed condemnation of a portion of its property at 235 Greenfield Parkway for the reasons set forth in this letter, which I will present to the board tonight. We ask that this letter and its exhibits be included as part of the town's hearing record. First, the proposed acquisition does not serve a public purpose. The town lacks the authority to exercise eminent domain to acquire property for the sole benefit of a private party. Here it is undisputed that the sole purpose of the acquisition is for the construction of an access road to provide an alternate ingress-egress point in connection with the development of the adjoining property by the private developer. Specifically, an email from the town attorney, Joe Fratesky, dated June 19th, actually it's not 2023, apologies for the error on the date, noted that he discussed the acquisition with the developer. Oh, it was 2023, sorry. That he discussed the acquisition with the developer and that the town is simply acting as an intermediary here to hopefully reach an agreement to allow for necessary ingress and egress to the Willenbaumer site. A copy of this email is attached to the letter as Exhibit A. In another email from the town attorney dated July 17th, 2023, the town attorney noted that he hoped the attached maps provide a little more clarity as to what the town and the neighboring developer are looking for. That email also noted that no parking would be taken in connection with the acquisition. A copy of that email is attached as Exhibit B. As further evidence that the proposed taking is only for the benefit of a private developer, the town passed an inducement resolution for the purpose of undertaking eminent domain on behalf of a private developer in connection with its private developments. An inducement resolution is typically used by industrial development agencies or similar entities when they agree to provide financial and/or other assistance to private development projects to persuade or influence developers to locate those projects in a certain area. A copy of the November 27th, 2023 meeting minutes is attached as Exhibit C. That is not the case here. To the contrary, the developer has been proposing to develop the adjoining property since at least 2020, already has ingress and egress to Buckley Road, and is already receiving benefits and assistance from the Onondaga County Industrial Development Agency, or OSIDA, O-C-I-D-A. A copy of relevant OSIDA documents is attached as Exhibit D. The public notice and correspondence to my client dated December 7th, 2023 also demonstrates that the acquisition is solely for the purpose of providing alternate access to the adjacent property known as urban villages. A copy of the notice letter is attached as Exhibit E. The public notice attempts to couch the proposed acquisition as being for the public benefit by intimating that acquisition of this alternate access is necessary, and I quote from that notice, to promote the sound growth and development of the town, to allow for the further development of the urban village's mixed-use development, and thereby advance the general prosperity and economic welfare of the residents of the town by facilitating the return of the adjacent and underutilized property to productive use, thereby promoting employment, economic revitalization, decreasing the negative impacts associated with large vacant buildings within the town, and increasing the town's sales tax revenues and the property tax base within the town. However, the development of the adjoining property received its first approval from the town of Salina in 2021, and construction is already underway. The town also previously applied for and obtained grant funds from New York State to assist with the development of the urban villages. As a result, all of the above referenced public benefits will be realized by the town without the acquisition of a portion of the property at 235 Greenfield for alternate access. A copy of the relevant approvals available online from the Town of Salina website is attached as Exhibit F. A copy of the recommendations received from the Onondaga County Planning Board with respect to the development of the urban villages is attached as Exhibit G. Accordingly, the proposed taking serves only a private interest and therefore is unconstitutional, ultra vires, and in violation of the eminent domain procedure law. The second point is that the town does not have the authority to condemn property subject to a prior public use. So the town further lacks authority to condemn property that is already being used for a public purpose in the absence of reasons that are special, unusual, and peculiar, or unless the two public uses can coexist. Here, according to the survey of 235 Greenfield Parkway, there's a 20-foot wide drainage easement that runs the entire length of the southerly boundary of the property to be acquired in the exact area where the proposed roadway would be constructed. It is undisputed that the existing drainage easement constitutes a public use. Because the property proposed to be acquired by the town is already dedicated to a prior public use, it cannot now be acquired by the town and converted to another public use that would destroy the existing public use in the absence of unusual or peculiar reasons which do not exist in this case. In fact, the construction of an impermeable road over an existing permeable drainage easement in a floodplain area is utterly illogical and likely to result in significant environmental impacts. A copy of the survey map is attached as Exhibit H. Finally, it is necessary to notify the drainage easement holder or holders that the town is proposing to condemn the drainage easement. And it should be noted that if the drainage easement runs in favor of Onondaga County, it cannot be condemned by the town under supremacy principles. The town has also utterly failed to consider the impacts to the adjoining properties and the environment. First, as noted above, the property to be acquired is already dedicated to a public purpose because it serves as an existing drainage easement. The town has not addressed the potential impacts with respect to stormwater runoff, drainage, and/or flooding that would result from the construction of an impervious road over a pervious drainage easement. Likewise, according to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation's NYSDEC EAF mapper and environmental resource mapper, there are also wetlands nearby, and both properties are in a flood zone. However, there has been no consideration of potential impacts on wetlands or flood zones. In addition, there are endangered or threatened species in the area for which the potential impacts have not been accounted. A copy of EAFs generated for 235 Greenfield and 100 Buckley using the NYSDEC EAF mapper, together with a screenshot of the NYSDEC Environmental Resource Mapper showing wetlands in the area, is attached as Exhibit I. A copy of the NYSDEC's Citizen Participation Plan for Urban Villages is attached as Exhibit J. The area is also designated as an archaeological sensitive area, and the proposed development site is a historic property. Yet there's been no analysis of potential impacts that would result from the construction of a new road, especially in connection with potential impacts to archaeological resources because of soil disturbance. To fully address the environmental impacts associated with historic and archaeological resources, the town should be required to consult with the Office of Parks, Recreation and Historic Preservation, or SHPO, SHPO, and obtain a letter of resolution. It is also worth noting that prior approvals for the Urban Village project were based on an improper review pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Specifically, the proposed development project was classified as an unlisted action and an uncoordinated review was conducted. However, the proposed development would disturb over 10 acres, making it a type 1 action. Even if the total site disturbance was less than 10 acres, the project occurs wholly within or substantially contiguous to buildings or structures eligible for listing on the National or State Registers of Historic Places, thereby reducing the type 1 thresholds such that a physical disturbance of 2.5 acres is a type 1 action. As a result, the proposed development project was a type 1 action for which full environmental assessment form should have been completed and a coordinated environmental review should have been conducted. In addition, none of the previous seeker reviews considered the potential acquisition of the adjoining property by eminent domain, and as a result, the environmental review has been improperly segmented. The town has also not demonstrated the basis for this alternate access. There was no traffic study indicating the need for additional access. According to documents obtained from the Onondaga County Planning Board, the traffic study, dated July 13, 2020, noted that the proposed development is a moderate traffic generator with 110 or less total trips entering and exiting during each of the peak hours. The analysis concludes that the traffic generated will have minimal impacts on traffic operations and no mitigation measures are recommended. Now, I understand there was an updated site plan with a change in use, but it does not appear that there's been any updated traffic impact study or any site plan or layout included as part of the hearing record that would support the need for the alternate access. Nor was there any updated traffic impact study to demonstrate the potential impacts on Buckley Road, Greenfield Parkway, or on the house's property and business because of modifications to the existing traffic flow as well as the additional traffic. The town has failed to demonstrate that the modified ingress and egress to the parking lot for my client's property will be both safe and adequate. To the contrary, the proposed access road would only cause inconvenience and safety concern for patients, many of whom are elderly, and staff accessing the parking area at 235 Greenfield. The taking also brings the road much closer to my client's office building, creating safety concerns and potentially rendering the building non-conforming with respect to zoning setbacks. See diagrams attached as Exhibit K. The loss of 16 parking spaces is also a significant impact on the house's medical office building, and for which the prior offer of $10,000 is woefully inadequate. It is also worth noting that although Greenfield Parkway is a town road, the owners of the lots in the Greenfield Corporate Park pay to maintain the trees, landscaping, curbing, and lighting along and in the median of Greenfield Parkway. The town utterly fails to identify and address the impacts of the taking on those improvements and on the potential additional costs and other impacts to the Greenfield Corporate Park businesses that are required to maintain those improvements. It is also unclear whether the other corporate park owners have been properly notified of the proposed taking. A copy of the agreement between the Greenfield Corporate Park owners is attached as Exhibit L. The town has failed to consider any alternative locations to the proposed acquisition. There's no demonstration of why secondary access is required or why the extension of Greenfield Parkway is the best alternative, especially considering earlier layouts of the urban villages showed access on both Park Street and Buckley Road. There's been no showing why the Park Street access is not sufficient to provide secondary access to the development to avoid the bottlenecking that's been referenced. Finally, the town has failed to establish that the proposed taking is the minimum taking necessary, especially considering the prior proposals that did not result in the loss of any parking spaces by household dermatology. In sum, the proposed acquisition does not serve a public use, benefit, or purpose as required by Article 2 of the eminent domain procedure law. The proposed taking exceeds the town's jurisdiction. The town failed to consider both environmental impacts and impacts on adjoining properties, and the town neglected to analyze any alternatives to the proposed acquisition or whether the proposed acquisition was the minimum necessary. As a result, we respectfully request that the town not authorize the proposed acquisition of the property by eminent domain. Thank you.
Next, Joseph Bowser.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Joseph Housel. His address?
Yeah, if you can.
2027 Little Pine Circle, Manlius, New York, 13104. So I am here tonight along with my wife, Kimberly Housel. We are both co-owners of both Housel Dermatology and KJH Development Corporation, which owns 235 Greenfield Parkway. It's been a difficult week for us since it's Christmas and we had to rush to get this all together. We only found out about this a couple weeks ago. And as a family man, and would love to spend time with my family during this holiday season. And we asked for this as an extension, pick another date, but we were rebuffed and told Mr. Farrell wanted this done ASAP while this present board was in session. So why are we here? Well, we've been talking about other people's property, but not ours. We've been talking about Mr. Pasquarello's property and the urban development property. We are here tonight to voice our feelings on the proposed act by the town of Salina to take our business property over on behalf of another private individual, Mr. Pasquarello. Prior to the onset of the eminent domain proceedings, there's been little to no regard to the value of my property, business, or the services that I have been providing to the community. We communicated our feelings on the proposed project to Mr. Carroll in April, and the response that we received was very brief. It did not provide much insight as to why the town of Salina, and specifically Mr. Carroll, was determined to assist Mr. Pasquarello to the detriment of my business. What has not been addressed is the impact that this project will have on my present and future business, as well as the impact that it will have on my patients whom I care deeply about. As a property owner and taxpayer in this community, I've always shown great consideration for my fellow citizens. I moved to this area back in 2013 and opened my practice over on Buckley Road right near Taft. Very, very busy area. In a moderate-sized office, 2,600 square feet. Patient volume expanded quickly, and I knew that I was rapidly outgrowing the space. The complaints that I received from patients, though they loved my care, was that the building was too small and focused, the complaints tend to focus more on the lack of adequate parking, lack of ground floor access, and the issue that seemed to be most concerning to them was the difficulty in pulling in and out of my office onto Buckley Road right near the Taft Road busy intersection. I listened to their opinions because which hold great value to me. I started looking for a property that offered my patients a safe, convenient way to access my office. The items that we believed were essential in order to set up a new business location and to invest our hard-earned money into this community included adequate space to grow, adequate parking, ground floor access, most importantly, easy driving access to enter and exit from my office. The building and location at 235 Greenfield Parkway fit the bill perfectly. Though it was in bankruptcy court at the time and needed some significant repairs, such as the roof, driveway lights, sidewalk, and landscaping, among several other items, the location was ideal for me. And even though I also didn't receive any tax abatement money, I thought it would be a great option because it was located on a cul-de-sac, which would then offer my patients the easiest ingress and egress from the parking lot. There was adequate parking for my patient population, many of whom are elderly and need a close proximity to the numerous entrances I have. In addition, prior to taking ownership, and this was before I even closed on the building, I was worried about how the neighbors were perceiving this. So to try and enhance the condition of the property, I hired and paid landscapers to go over and cut it. And this was all prior to taking over ownership of this. I repaired all the issues with my property and reinvested a tremendous amount of money to improve the property, such as the installation of solar, which I have now started my second round of panels onto the roof, remilled the entire parking lot and repaved it, which cost $250,000, and replaced all the sidewalks at a cost of $125,000, all with no tax dollar given back to me to help abate those costs. I'm presently working on adding charging stations, as I'm very environmentally conscious, and started construction to expand my patient rooms into the vacant side of the building. As a business owner, I do everything I can to give back to the community. I provide services that bring people from as far away as Old Forge to Oswego, Watertown, and Binghamton. These individuals stay in the hotels surrounding the area, in Salina, eat at the restaurants, shop at Destiny, and other local stores. They tell me, this is where I'm going after I get done with surgery. I'm going to the mall, or they stay overnight the night before, because I start surgery at 6:15 in the morning, and people come great distances to come to my office. I offer a very nice living for my 35 employees. I provide care to thousands of patients every year, some of which you probably know. I donate a considerable amount of money to local charities and care about each and every one of my patients. The economic impact of this project on my business has never been discussed. It has not ever been brought up once to no, except the only supposed benefit to housing dermatology that was ever mentioned to me was that it would increase drive-by traffic. I'm not sure how many of you ever driven by a doctor's office and thought, I'm going to stop in to make an appointment. Highly unlikely. In reality, it's very unlikely that you've ever met anybody that has ever driven by a doctor's office and thought, I'm going to call that and make an appointment or just stop in. Reality is this has the potential to quite seriously negatively impact my business. They've spoken about taking 16 parking spaces. From an economic perspective, parking spaces can directly correlate with potential business. By taking these spots, my future economic growth may be seriously be stifled. Having a certain number of parking spots when we bought this building was a very important point, because you can only have a certain number per square footage, and this had a desirable amount of parking for us. This was extremely important when we were picking out this location and this spot, as it was also at the end of the cul-de-sac, which would offer great things. Very, very easy ingress and egress for my patients. In addition, the town has been consistently very inconsistent with how much land they want to confiscate. Now it looks as if the town and Mr. Pasquarello want to condemn very close to my building and convert some of the front row parking spaces. They've expanded this plan numerous times, and now it includes part of my lot that is in such close proximity to a sidewalk generator in front of my building that it's about 7 feet away from it. I doubt that at some point in the future, if the property is taken, how do I know that I have protections? For example, requiring that my generator be removed because now it's too close to the property line. Also, I would have no control over what the town would do with this property that is so close to my building. They have not been very transparent with the luxury apartment project plan. So how do I know they aren't planning a picnic area in this area, sidewalk from the road to connect to my sidewalk, or just in general avoid taking care of the area? This again will probably fall on me as the property owner, because as we have shown, the town has never made any attempt to maintain Greenfield Parkway, with the exception of plowing. Next, the plans that they show would have tremendous issues on drainage in my entire parking lot. As a drainage easement is there to drain water from surrounding areas such as my parking lot, removal of this would allow the water then to be directed where? I'm not sure, because that's what that whole drainage easement is for. When I just had the parking lot repaved and remilled, I made very, very clear to these, to the people doing it, that the water needs to be directed towards that drainage easement at the edge of the property, as water tended to build up on their parking lot. How would these and other issues related to the engineering project affect my property? And who would be responsible for paying for any and all remediation related to this? These concerns have been relayed numerous times to Mr. Pasquarello and Impero at great length. Nicholas Farrow, Supervisor. The objections that we were met with lack of regard for my property. There's been a lack of transparency from the beginning. When we asked for the plans in writing, we were rebuffed. When we asked for plans to be left at our office, we were denied this. We have been repeatedly told that we can go along with what they want, or they would use eminent domain in order to acquire the property. They stated that this project was going to move forward whether we wanted it or not. When the town offered $10,000 for the entrance to my parking lot, I knew they had no real intention of negotiating in good faith. The landing line consisted of the entrance to my parking lot, a gate, and a light, each of which individually cost more than $10,000 each. I would have ultimately ended up with less land, a less desirable property for future growth, no cul-de-sac, and a great deal of money lost as my attorney fees would ultimately be more than the unreasonable and insulting amount they offer. In closing, my value to the community and the consideration of my successful medical practice have been ignored up until this point. I sincerely hope that as reasonable members of the town board, that you consider strongly voting against this. The voters will want transparency as to how their tax dollars are being spent to help a private developer. Taking a personal property is a serious act, and I hope Mr. Perro, a Republican, considers how his constituents will see this.
Next person on my list is Kimberly Housel. Dr. Hauser, you're the last person on my list. Is there anyone else that would like the opportunity to present an oral or written statement and or submit other documents concerning the public project? If so, raise your hand. Seeing none, thank you for all your comments. It is now 7:38. Does anyone want to make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Parra, anyone want a second?
Second.
Mr. Cushing, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Public hearing is closed.
We need to schedule a special meeting.
If the board wants to,
What I would like to suggest is that we make a motion to schedule a special meeting on Friday at 9 a.m.
the date is today.
What is this? December 29th at 9 a.m. this Friday, in this room. I'll make a motion for that.
That's right,
We should do it.
I won't be able to make 9.
Okay, earlier than that. 8 a.m. So what I'm gonna suggest is that we schedule a special meeting at 8 a.m. on Friday, December 29th, in this room. Is there anything else needed?
No,
I'll make the motion, for that special meeting. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Record,
All in favor? Aye.
any opposed?
None. All right, we'll have a special meeting on that day to consider this. That concludes items 1 through 6. Mr. Engineer. Also, anybody, I see Amelia in the back as well. You guys do not have to stay if you don't want to stay. You're more than welcome to leave, now that the town business is completed. You are welcome to stay as well if you'd like to. Have a good evening. Town Engineer?
I don't see no other here.
Thank you, you as well. Mr. Attorney's report.
Nothing.
Moving on to the comptroller's report that was put together so vigorously by Ms. Hummel. As you can see, there are a considerable number of transfers and budget modifications. Do we have a motion to approve the budget modifications and transfers as listed?
Motion.
Motion made, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a second, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Recall?
Yes.
Councilor Cushing?
Yes.
Councilor Cicero?
Yes.
Councilor Finn?
Yes.
Supervisor Finley?
Yes. Next item is a motion to close the town clerk's office capital project and transfer the balance of $282,257.50 back to ARPA fund account. Do we have a motion to close this capital project? Motion made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Recall?
Yes.
Councilor Cushing?
Yes.
Councilor Cicero?
Yes.
Councilor Finn?
Yes.
Supervisor Finley?
Yes, the next one is a motion to close the Burnham Park capital project and transfer the balance of $34,294.26 back to the ARPA fund budget fund. Motion made, do we have a second? Second, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Recall?
Yes.
Councilor Cushing? Councilor Cicero?
Yes.
Councilor Finn?
Yes.
Supervisor Finley?
Yes, the next item is to consider waiving the 30-day waiting period for McGraw Box Brewing at 3703 Brewerton Road. Motion made, do we have a second? Second, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Recall?
Yes.
Councilor Cushing?
Yes.
Councilor Cicero?
Yes.
Councilor Finn?
Yes.
Supervisor Finley?
Yes, the next item is to authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with the Salina Free Library for 2024 privileges. Privileges, is that right? This is our contract with the Salina Free Library. We are giving them $100,000 this year. Motion made, seconded. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Pico?
Yes.
Counselor Cushing?
Yes.
Counselor Sisseton?
Yes.
Counselor Carney?
Yes.
Supervisor Curran?
Yes, there is one potential item on a supplemental. Do we have a motion? I'll make a motion to add the item from the supplemental agenda to the regular town agenda. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? None. The one item on the supplemental agenda, now on the regular agenda, is a resolution that sets the annual salary of bookkeeper at $35,000. I'll make that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Pico?
Yes.
Counselor Cushing?
Yes.
Counselor Sisseton?
No.
Counselor Carney?
No.
Supervisor Curran?
Yes. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Motion.
We have 5 motions. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks. Have a safe new year. For those coming on Friday, see you then.